Well, as a city, when they did the last census, we did not qualify citywide. After that census, we challenged it. We did our own survey, hired an independent company to assist us with that. We re-qualified at 52.4%, but that qualification only lasted for 5 years. That 5 years expired in 2021, which should have been backed up by the 2020 census, which we were in 2023 and still have not received the 2020 census. So we currently do not qualify as citywide. As for actual numerical figures, it's a sliding scale depending on how many people are in your household. So if we did a specific area that is of benefit to just a block or a couple houses or something like that, we would actually go house to house and survey those persons. We have done, the last 2 years, we've done water line replacements in the block group that still qualifies as block group wide, which you can do because that project benefits the entire area, that entire block group area.
So is there a, am I allowed to ask?
No, go ahead, yeah, absolutely.
So there's no income, like, oh, if you're under $30,000 a year income, you qualify, or?
It is, but it's how many people live in your household, and that number escalates accordingly to the amount of people and the total salary of all the persons within that household.
But it's not in writing anywhere that someone could look and check, oh, we don't qualify, or?
Oh yeah, we can get it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. But you have to be very careful when you hand that information out, as you can't say that this is grant dependent. It's a simple yes and no. Do you make above or below this number? Very, very ambiguous, straightforward.
Okay.
Yes.
Can any of the numbers be taken from when they did the consolidation figures?
No. They have a very specific survey. We actually hired a third party when we did it citywide to come in. We had college kids help us. They had to be specially trained on how to actually ask the right questions when they went out in the field. It's totally random too. We had them come up with our random number generator, which was associated with all the addresses in the city, and so you can't cherry pick specifics. They're very, very good about not having you be able to manipulate that at all. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot too. Any other questions? If anybody does, following this, you're more than welcome to contact me, or if you have any projects that you want to discuss offline, please call or come in and see me. We'll be taking any ideas for the next couple of weeks, and then we will re-advertise for a second hearing, which we'll announce at the upcoming council meeting. So, there you go. There, I'll turn the meeting back over to you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Being no more business to discuss at this special hearing, I will now adjourn.
Yeah, well,
put it in the back of my van.
We collect a lot of those.
Oh, and
do it, and also public hearing.
I called those guys.
They don't care.
There was just in case that's something that our code requires. We don't have to, because we comply by code as we did in 2020.
Fine, but, you know, when I saw that, I thought, it better be ready, so we don't delay. That's fine. Yeah, well, I already have done, you know, I dictated that I have to court, so I wanted to be ready for tonight. Okay, that's fine. I'm prepared, I've gone through it, I'm prepared to recommend council.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
No, I'm getting ready for Fair Week next week.
Shane, you officially
Yeah,
graduated.
everybody likes to come home.
Okay.
Since we're originally from
Your
Clearfield.
ceremony?
So what's the next week, you're doing full-time too?
Yeah.
Call you doctor.
Yeah, that's,
Mister, you have to call him Mister.
that's one of my, I always like to
You go to PhD, right?
see the animal place, but maybe after.
It's a good feeling when you get through the 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, they got her up in,
They had
He
it,
never moved here.
Mine was
He
mixed
worked
with
for the
people
British.
online and in
I
person.
worked
They
for
had on the internet. I just watched it on the internet. They called your
He
name.
enjoyed doing that.
It was nice to be
He
part
had a
of it.
job that he didn't have to, well, he moved up in the ranks because he worked here 48 years. And then he finally retired. My older sister, my youngest sister, is still getting his pension. Excuse me. Once my mom retired, his pension was
It's easier if you didn't do the work.
So I think yeah, I mean, it's not that much, they base it on. Sure. Still workers, I go on to still workers. I'm inside with the union. Part of his job, he's in a big industrial age. Right. The play would be a really.
Yep, our exchange.
And I would like across from the plant.
35 and I had
I met a lot of them. My granddad came over from Italy. I was 12 years old. That's where he worked. Probably what they came. We were waiting for the banana. Took a while to get all that. Yeah, we'll try almost 30 years. Well, 39 years. We had 20-year contracts. Franchise. Once the last one was running out. Yeah, there's there's a few more. And actually, I'm doing a little bit better.
Good evening, everybody. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing on tonight's agenda is I need to announce we have executive session Thursday to discuss a personnel matter. No final, nothing was voted on, and we did not come to a conclusion. And the work session meeting minutes, July 20th, 2023. Council's wishes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion on the floor, properly second, to approve the minutes for the work session on July 20th, 2023. Any questions on the motion? We'll vote on the motion.
Reesinger.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Bernardo.
Yes.
Achenbach.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes. Registry of invoice as presented. Christopher?
So I have changed this a little bit. We list there the auto draft amount, $58,655.60. And those are the standard utility bills that we get on a recurring basis that are taken out of our account. They may not coincide with our dates specifically, so we have those as an auto draft that you approve. We have the general fund, $293,000. $1,058.98. And then if we have special funding, such as for our sewer plant, we have the Penn Best funding, $3,164,053.05. And if anybody would like a full and complete list of those check registries, send me an email, info@duboispa.gov, and we'll get you a PDF copy, or give us a call and we can get you a paper copy.
Council's wishes on the registry of invoices.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, properly second, to approve the registry of invoices as presented. Any questions on the motion? We'll vote on the motion.
Reesinger.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Bernardo.
Yes.
Achenbach.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes. Public comments. Yes, Mr. Franklin.
Charlie Macklin, Monroe Street. I was pleased to hear at the last council meeting that the budget for the city is sound. It's also announced that there's going to be a vote regarding contract with Comcast being the sole provider of digital media in the city. This to me is the same as a protection racket benefiting the city and Comcast, but unfortunately not the citizens of DuBois. Let the free market be free, let there be competition. This is the only way to get the best service for the best price. Having a contract with one entity being the sole provider takes away any bargaining power the consumer may have. This same scenario is going on for waste management. Please stop taking payoffs from companies to eliminate their competition for them. Will the next one be Giant Eagle or Martin's percentage of profits be the only grocery supplier in DuBois? Okay.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? Yes.
Linda London, Rumberg Avenue. This is not the same as what Mr. Mitchell was talking about with the CDBG grants. Mine's grants in general. When a grant application is made to be used for a specific project, can the awarded grant money be switched at any time to another project once it has been approved to be used for the original request? Number two, who oversees that the awarded grant money is properly used for the originally applied for and approved project? And number three, upon completion of the project, is documentation made to the council that they in turn relay the information to the grant provider?
Yeah, I'll answer them, and then Chris, you can interject, or you want to answer and I'll interject. Okay, question, go ahead. Question one, once we get a grant, it cannot be switched. If we get a grant, okay, Chris, go ahead.
So when we get a grant, it's for a specific purpose and project. If we want to switch it, we have to go back to the grant awardee. So, for example, if we're trying to do something in the park and we want to switch it to a different project in the park, we need to get approval from the people that gave us the money. And at the completion of the project, there's an audit done by the people that give you the money. They track that you met all their requirements, minimum wage rates, insurances, US Steel, whatever it might be, budgets, and then everything is closed out after that. They typically hold a certain percentage of that grant funding until they confirm you did everything correctly. So they do verify at the beginning and at the end that you did what you were supposed to do. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, two of them.
Okay,
You know, like
third
the
one?
overseeing of the grants.
The
The
award
council
agency
oversees it.
oversees how we do the grants. Council will vote on the payments we make for those projects, but they're not in overseeing the progress every day, checking out our certified payrolls and US Steel. But all of the grant, I shouldn't say all, most of the grant awardees do oversee all the projects for us.
Because I think that does clarify somewhat, because I don't think I'm mistaken when I say that I've heard it said in here that money was switched, you know, like for a certain grant, but I didn't know that you would then go back to the grant provider, that they have to approve for you all to do that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Right. Yeah, we can't just switch it. We do have to get approval from the funding agency to switch it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that too, if I may, certain grants are permanent, certain things that may not be used in other areas. So depending on how the grant's written, you gotta stay within those parameters. If you
Yeah,
will.
even if we switch, if we had a grant for recreation, we can't switch it to road rehab. It would be another recreation project. I think, is that where you're going, Jimmy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But even if we switch within the same
Parameters.
we have to get approval to do so.
Thank you.
I believe that's also noted in our audit, isn't it? Our yearly audit?
They do look at those, yeah. We have single audits for specific projects.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Nasuti, this question is for you, Chris. I had posted a comment about our last city council meeting, about the week of July 10th, and a former city councilwoman commented, and she said, quote, "We were all offered attorneys in the event that the AG or Herm's attorneys wanted to meet with us." It said that we went on to pay this bill. Is that part of the $274,000 that we paid? And if it is or isn't, would you, the city, be willing to show us who has been interviewed and who we paid to have those interviews done with?
So of the 275,000,
Yeah,
it was not called for Herm's legal attorneys.
okay.
There was people in the city government as well.
I just thought it was strange because it took all this time to learn that. I never knew that in all the meetings I've attended. And yet it's the former city councilwoman who resigned because she cared about the city enough to say, "Michael, mine were paid for." I
Yeah.
just find it odd. I'm wondering if you will release everybody who was interviewed and who their attorneys were.
What's that?
We can't do that. It's not.
Okay,
It's still on our indictment.
okay.
So it's, just to be clear, Mayor, it's it's part of the indictment?
That's correct.
So we don't know, other than what Shannon told us, because she obviously broke her own confidentiality? To some extent, is what you're saying, like, it's not gonna be released, is what you're saying. I just find it interesting. It's just a comment, because I was shocked that she posted that and said she had been interviewed. Current Press had never reported that, the city council never told us, I've talked to many of you, I never heard it one time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
I just, the trailhead, I was at the Sandy Township meeting for the DCED, and they were talking about it possibly connecting to, like, up towards Spider Lake on their end.
Okay,
So if the city would connect it from like what the Y out through what I call Larky Town, would that be like paved?
yes, it would be paid.
Okay, and so then like crossing at DuBois Street, would they consider putting in, some sort of pass again, like on the boulevard? Or would we have to come up and cross on the street to head out to Larky Town? I'm asking because I ride a mountain bike.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wondering, will it be looped underneath the road?
We looked at this, I don't think we can get underneath the road there. We do have an application in to put a pedestrian bridge next to that, so that we can have a protected crossing at the traffic light there. We would redo that little intersection at Parkway and DuBois. We recognize there's a trouble trying to get across DuBois Street at other locations, so that was something Joe and I just put in on Friday.
And it would go the whole way through Larky Town?
Correct. Yep,
If
Okay.
Sandy Township gets theirs.
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Okay.
I'm Kathleen Clement, Chestnut Avenue City. I just wanted to know why, I understand that Herm's original contract was changed from including a morals clause to having no morals clause, essentially giving him the green light to do whatever he wants, illegal, unethical, and yet be paid till the end of his contract. So he's paid even though if he's terminated,
I'm not aware that there was ever a change in his contract,
so he never had a morals clause.
not to my knowledge.
Does that make sense?
But not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I didn't draw a contract. Yes.
Was there a morals, Debbie McLean DuBois, was there a morals clause in the other city managers' contracts?
Again, not to my knowledge, Ms. Jerry?
I didn't draw the contract either,
Okay.
just so you understand.
I was curious as to whether or not, Mr. Simplizio's, pay was still being given to him, or in light of the fact that we just learned that Mr. Nasuti is only making $8,000 for the work he is doing for the city, why is Mr. Simplizio's pay not being held in escrow until this is done, and increase Mr. Simplizio, or Mr. Nasuti's pay for cleaning up all of this?
Again, I'll comment on that, I'll probably get slam-basted. I don't know that Herm was convicted of anything.
I didn't say he
Well,
was,
so-
I just said, until this all goes through the legal system,
That's right.
I have never accused Herm of anything.
I know that, but I'm saying,
All I'm
he's
saying
innocent
is,
until proven guilty.
I have felt from the beginning that why is the pay not held in escrow?
because he's entitled to it. He's not guilty of anything yet.
But he's under investigation.
And that means what?
It seems like it's very disrespectful to Mr. Nasuti that he's in here doing the work. And, you know, he's doing all this right now. And he is being transparent. And why is he not being rewarded and shown consideration for what he's doing?
The council is rewarding me, paying me what I think I'm satisfied with. I'm not unsatisfied with how they're treated. They're treating me fantastic.
So there was an increase in his base pay from before till now, is what you're saying?
You're wise, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
There's a meeting scheduled on August 16th, I think it is, with the judge who's going to hear the case and the attorneys. Has city council or anyone else asked that that meeting be postponed?
No, and why would we?
Because you're not ready. Someone's not ready.
Yeah, I think the Attorney General's not ready. But
So there is no request to postpone that meeting. It will be held.
City doesn't, Mr., we don't have any control over that. Judge Saylor would be the one who would determine, he set the date. Either the AG has to ask for a continuance.
Right.
Or Mr. Simplizio's lawyers would have to. I would assume that if they're not ready, they'll get ready.
So as far as you know, there has been no request
from us?
from anyone?
No.
No.
That would not be for us to make a request.
Yeah, it's, okay. Any other questions? Mr. Trout?
Talking about contracts here, who actually wrote the contract for the city of DuBois with Herm Simplicio?
That's a good question.
Ms. Sherry?
Quite frankly,
I-
I do not know. I did not do it. I have heard that it was something that Mr. Simplicio drew up. And I also heard that it was done by another attorney. I'm sorry, I don't know that. My only
He drew it up. We
recommendation.
never, the city council had no,
Well, I'm sure they did. But I did not draw it. That's your question to me. I did
well, I'm
not
just
draw
asking
it.
who initiated the contract, who actually wrote the contract?
The city signed it.
I wish,
You know, since the city is responsible for giving the contract, who,
I really wish Mayor Gilbert was here to answer that. I don't know. I was just a council member back then, and I did vote to pass the contract. But I wasn't involved in that upper echelon at that time, so I don't know that. I mean, anybody else from council want to comment on that? I mean,
I don't know exactly though for sure either.
Tony, did you?
I merely recommended that the contract be for specific work. In other words, because we were doing a PUC rate filing, it was my advice that there should be a rate for services performed for the water department. There should be a contract for the services performed for the sewer department, and then there should be a contract specifically for city manager jobs. And that made it much easier when we, because the question by PUC is how much of the work done by various employees of the city of DuBois goes toward the water department function, how much goes toward sewer, and then how much is regular. Because there are many, many communities that don't operate a water plant and others that do not operate sewer.
Well, was that in the original contract, or did you add those things in the contract, and did that go back to somebody else? You know,
No, I recommended that the contract that was in existence
Who
be
did you
split.
recommend that
I
to?
recommended it to council, so
That
we
was
could,
it?
we could properly do the PUC filing.
Did you make any changes to the contract, like the morals clause or anything?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay.
No, I wasn't asked to, and it was simply to split them, and council determined the amount of money that would be paid as salary for each of those contracts.
So you're saying there were not a moral clause in it?
I have no knowledge of changing anything.
Okay.
That I can tell you. I simply recommended to council, because we had a PUC filing, that they be split into 3 separate contracts.
As the solicitor, is to recommend what should be, how, the way things should be handled, is it typical for them to disregard your opinion?
It is my
Whenever
job
you
to
see-
represent council
Well,
and
you
the
said
city.
that you recommended that they change it, and
They
to your
split.
knowledge,
No, she didn't say change it, she recommended
okay,
to put that in the
Yes.
contract.
but it didn't happen, so I'm asking, is that typical that?
No, I didn't say I said that. I said I recommended that 3 contracts be implemented. A separate contract for services performed as head of the water department.
Okay,
A separate contract for head of the sewer fund.
and that was done.
That was done. And a
But the
separate,
morals clause was not put in.
I have no recollection of,
Okay.
of a morals clause being removed.
Okay.
Removed or added?
It's not there.
Either one.
Okay.
Does a contract like that typically have a moral clause?
A 10-year contract?
In light of the administrative code, I think that council always has the discretion to determine if there is activity or an action that would warrant dismissal. And I think it's pretty clear, if there are felony convictions, dismissal is warranted.
What about the land purchase where he went against city council's wishes, not just wishes, but an actual motion and everything like that, and instead of buying 27 acres, he bought 7 for the city? Why wasn't something done at that time? That, to me, is irreproachable. That should have been taken care of right then, and I think you should have said to the council, hey, we need to do something about this. He didn't listen to you.
I think that if you read that, it was approved up to 27 acres, right? Is that the way it's worded? No, I'm just saying,
Well-
I mean, seriously, I mean, that's what
No,
exactly what it
let
said,
me
up
respond to
27
that.
acres.
Let me respond to that, sir. If you look at the deeds, I didn't handle them, all right? And the property was brought to Mr. Simplicio first by the realtor, all right? And this is what I've been told by the individuals who were involved. And because Mr. Simplicio had been looking for land for quite some time upon which he could build a camp. When the offer was brought to him to purchase all of the property, the realtor mentioned it to him. He mentioned to city council, and you can see it in the minutes, that there is this land that is coming available. Council directed him to investigate it. Now, at that point, I was not involved in what happened. I understand a third party came in and was willing to purchase it, the other land. Now, I can tell you this, I thought when I heard about the project and I heard about the possibility of purchasing land and the price per acre, my comment was that it was not in council's business plan, it was way too expensive. The price per acre of this piece of property was well above what we have ever spent, especially because we look only for land around the watershed that we can forest. We can, and there's nothing on there. If you've gone out there, and I have, there's nothing there. The only part that was valuable to the city was the road. And that is in fact what council elected to buy. So I don't have a problem with it. He paid full price for it. The party who paid the other part of it, the other party paid full price for it. The city, I thought, paid a very hefty price, and to me, it would only have been worth it to get the road. Other than that, I would have counseled the city not to purchase any additional land, and they did not. But that was handled by
Sure.
outside counsel.
And you stated earlier that the city was really only interested in land that had forest on it, is that correct?
We have historically only been so that, because we can regenerate it, it manages.
Is that one of the reasons you bought that 7 acres?
Well, I wasn't happy about the price on the 7 acres. But I thought, but the city felt it needed an access road to the back of the watershed. I thought that made sense for that strip of land. And to be able to keep people, there's a gate across it. I understand that it's also used by the neighbor to gain access to his property. I don't know if he pays the city anything for that. That's never been brought to my attention. But I know there's a gate on it. And I think for the protection of the rear of the watershed, it serves a purpose, because that's the only way we can access that land. So I didn't have I could see the purpose for the road parcel. I didn't see the purpose for the remainder of it, because it doesn't have a tree on it, to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, folks. I should have wrote the thing off. SOS.
Ms. Cherry, just a question about a comment you just made. If I understand you correctly, if somebody, and God forbid actually, but if somebody is found, you said felony level, and you said you would counsel to terminate such person, does that mean you would, what kind of advice would you give council as to whether or not we guarantee that fully guaranteed contract? Meaning, would your advice be, let's not pay it and let them sue the city for this payment?
I don't think it's fair to ask me to make a public comment about that. We're a man who's innocent until proven guilty. I happen to believe from my contacts with the HE, they're not going to find any money missing from the city of DuBois.
Which is good news. That's great news.
Which really should be very good news for everyone. Certainly,
great news.
you know, something that.
But I'm just curious, because you said if it is a felony, then.
Well,
they should determine-
felonies are very different matters.
Yeah.
But I don't see felonies coming out here. I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm hoping it doesn't come
And
out.
I don't think there was probable cause to even file them.
Yep.
And I'll go on record that way.
Josh?
Any other questions?
I do. So having $93,000 in cash of the city's money is okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Pat.
Well,
I mean, to me, that he should have been fired right that day.
well, wait. And I think that responds in part to Mr. Meckling's statement. The money was given by Waste Management, and it's given by Waste Management the same amount to adjoining municipalities. It's given to Sandy County. The letter from the representatives of Waste Management make it very clear that they wanted the money to be used by the fire department for fire department purposes and for city purposes. Now, that money was located in a building that was used by the Community Days Committee. And they kept all receipts there, they kept their monies there, they kept their collections there. The money, and there are accompanying envelopes that will become part of the evidence in the case where it was leftover money from particular years and it was being saved for the following year because, to be quite frank, the Community Days activities are not funded by collections or donations solely. They are supplemented by what was called the community fund money. I happen to know that the AG was advised that that money existed, and the AG did not look in the room where the Community Days activities were conducted. And that means that all the receipts that were kept there were not, thankfully, not confiscated by the AG. So they remain, and the AG was advised that they exist. And that's all I can say right now, because it's pretty obvious that they exist.
Tony, it's $93,000 cash. The city's money. Whether you call it community money, that should have been in a city checking account or savings
Yes,
account.
thank you, Ken.
Well, it was originally in the checking account, and it was removed for payments that were made in cash.
And that's not a terminatable offense.
And Pat, it
I-
was held for 6 weeks before we got it, so
Yeah.
somebody knows.
So is it common that the city pays cash for things, or was this?
That's not boat money.
I mean, like, is this normal that we pay cash? I mean, because for most business activity, it's a check. So I'm just wondering, is there other instances that we pay cash?
Well,
for
we,
things?
the city, did not pay cash. I think there were certain high, I want to say high, well-known special guests, such as ex-Steelers, such as, certain acts that demanded to be paid in cash. The same way that the Steelers football team demanded to be paid in cash from the United Way. Do I pay people in cash? No, I don't. And does the city of DuBois pay people for city business? No, they do not. But these individuals require payment in cash. Also, the little girls and boys who carry the banners were paid in cash. The college kids who worked there were paid in cash because they put in a lot of time and that. So certainly not.
$4,000.
City bills are not paid in cash. This would have been for that event. That's all.
We issue 1099s, or would they issue 1099s?
No.
No.
Or is it all illegal?
It's not illegal to pay in cash. It's illegal not to report it on your tax return. So, and
At the end of paying the kids and stuff for the carrying the banners and that, we still have $93,000 left over.
from year to year to year to year.
Just sitting there and.
So put
It should not have been in a secured location, like a bank.
Right.
Yeah, it's-
I'm not in charge of it. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't-
It is what it is. I'm not in charge.
I don't keep $93,000 in my house.
Right.
So, Tony, so you knew that Herm was paying people with cash, like the stars and all that stuff?
Yeah. I think everybody does.
That, it was well known.
Okay.
I was never there when he paid them.
I mean, we're a city, we need to write checks, we need to send 1099s. That should never happen.
But Community Days is not part of the city.
It certainly is.
Okay, moving on.
That's a true question, sir, but that's a true answer. How then did that money become city all of a sudden? Because I'm confused by the transfer, we dropped it off to Mr. Nasuti and presumably the chief of police. Somehow It's now in a city account. It wasn't city money prior to that.
Because
It's
the-
always been community fund money donated by Waste Management
Right.
for the purposes, and Waste Management was very aware
Right.
of what it was being used for.
Yes.
Why did I want it brought to the city at that moment in time? Because I felt I had enough trail and I didn't want the Attorney General to confiscate it as they confiscated the other city money that was sitting up there.
Sure.
Or I wanted to make sure it went for city purposes. Or the other money they took when they came in and they did their raid.
So whether city money was somewhere else? I have two
It was
questions.
sitting on, there was other cash on Bobby's desk.
Right, so
from
they took
donations.
it when they came in.
Yeah.
But can you tell me, like, all of a sudden it became city property, I guess? But the mayor just said it was not ours, it was community fund.
No, I've always identified it as community fund money.
Not under the jurisdiction of the city.
Well, I think it's always been under the jurisdiction of council.
Then we would know that that money was sitting in a safe, wouldn't we?
I think council knew
Maybe the
that money
treasurer or the
was.
controller would know, somebody would know.
Community Days asked city council for contributions every year.
I understand that,
It's
Tony,
in
but
the, it's in the minutes every year.
how did it become our money the moment somebody took it out of the United Way Fund, which I still don't understand how that happened, but it got here. Now we're saying it's the city money. It wasn't city money, it was Community Days money, which comes from Waste Management,
I've always called it community fund money.
but not under the jurisdiction of the city.
And the account that the money was put into is marked for a community fund, correct?
But Chris, it's under our control now?
Was it under the city's EIN number in the bank?
Was never.
Is it now?
Was it?
No,
No, it's
before.
not. We're always-
But is it now?
Yeah, well,
It is now.
It is now, so it became
Under
city
the
money.
city money.
It is
I would just want to know how
That's
it
not
became
true.
city money.
There were bank accounts in the name of the volunteer fire department where they kept the money for community days. And then there would be checks issued and, or receipts for bills that were paid. And then there was money left over. And it was kept. And that's really all I can tell you. That's what I know occurred. And we wanted to make sure that it was community fund money as opposed to United Way money, because it did not belong to the United Way. I thought I'd made that very clear.
Okay, moving on. Any other questions?
So I previously asked how much money was frozen by the AG. I was told, and now the solicitor just said they did confiscate some money.
They took, the money that they took the day they came here, they actually didn't take there might have been some cash, Bobby, but it was mostly checks. The people donated to the community. They've never been cashed.
So we had checks that were never cashed, Mayor? They just sat there?
Donations.
Right, that were never
They
cashed.
came in that week.
Yeah, oh, I got you.
Week to week, every Thursday, Friday, whatever day Bobby made a deposit.
I follow.
They came in and took all those checks for that week.
Yep. So they confiscated what they saw. and
That's exactly correct.
There wasn't
Mr.
extra,
Mitchell explained that at our previous council.
Yeah.
there wasn't extra cash taken from the United Way by the AG, or anywhere else by the AG. So
From our knowledge.
so you're just talking about some checks that were,
That's correct.
so not a large amount of money.
Oh, they also call us.
Yes.
That's private.
Right.
Okay, anything else? All right, moving on. First thing, number 6, Comcast cable franchise agreement. Commissioner Sue.
We had Tony look at this at the last meeting for us. I think she's prepared to give a recommendation.
Yes, I have reviewed, gone line by line over the agreement. One of the things I was concerned about is if there was an exclusivity clause, that we had to agree that Comcast was the only franchise. And that has a prior agreement that I saw, they were the exclusive, but it is not. Under 2.4, the franchise granted to Comcast shall be non-exclusive. And so nothing in this agreement shall affect the right of the city to grant other franchises to construct, operate, or maintain a cable system. And there is also no requirement that a cable company be the sole provider of internet or television services. So there is no prohibition for DirecTV, Hulu, Dish TV, those do not. However, what there is under 2.6 is that a requirement that if the city grants a subsequent franchise or other authorization to provide similar wired video services, that when taken as a whole, those contracts not be more favorable than the provisions that we have imposed upon Comcast. Comcast, under the contract, the price that Comcast pays is 5% of the fees they collect. City has a right to inspect their work. They also provide a $10,986 grant, and as well as a free cable services to municipal buildings such as the building itself, police stations, fire companies, public work buildings, water and sewer authorities. That amount of costs can be deducted from the 5% franchise fee cap that they pay. There is also, as I said, that one-time $10,986 educational and government channel grant payable to the city for the institution and maintenance of an educational and governmental access channel. Based on repairs to be done, these lines are only to be laid either above ground